Thursday nights, 8 p.m., folks. You know what that means. It's your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we are going to have a packed show tonight, folks, because there is business dealings afoot, people being released, streaming deals starting up that don't include wrestling, and all kinds of other stuff, including The Rock crashing SmackDown. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're glad you're here with us, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now. How is it going, everybody? It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we are so glad you're here with us this week. We got three of the crew in effect tonight. You got me, Will, we got Damian next to me, and we got the Giant Crab Jamal all the way on the end on the right there. Gentlemen, we have a very newsworthy day to talk about today here on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. So I think we're going to have a packed show. The next hour is going to be quite busy, as we have a lot to run down. So how's everybody doing before we get into it?
Good.
Oh, yeah. Black Trash Bag Day. My favorite non-government holiday. Since Arbor Day. I'm very excited.
There we go. We will get to everything involving trash bags and releases and all that as our second topic, because we're going to go right out of the gate. Today was a kind of a banner day in wrestling as far as like stuff being announced, just bang, bang, bang as the day went on. Everything started this morning with the announcement from WWE and NBC Universal that next year, fall 2024, SmackDown will return to USA Network. The deal with Fox will come to an end. Fox had been rumored to not be in the running to do a renewal with what the rights increase would take. So apparently that is not happening, and the deal is done with new TKO Group Holdings announcing that it will be a 5-year deal with NBC in October 2024. Interestingly enough, here's the interesting part. There's a little added part of this. They're still talking about SmackDown being on Friday nights and all that. Back on USA Network. They're not talking about putting it back on Tuesday or anything. Added little twist to this. The partnership also involves 4 specials a year to air on NBC in prime time. So an added little bonus in there, and it's rumored to be for $1.4 billion, about a 40% increase over what they were getting from Fox. So lots of money getting made already with this. This new ownership's already cashing in on getting some money coming in and up in. So
what I'm hearing is we're going to get Saturday night's main event back. That's what I'm hearing about those 4 times a year.
Basically. That would be my guess, or maybe they go so far as to put some of these pay-per-views on NBC.
Well, realistically, I want to see Saturday Night Live get replaced by Shotgun Saturday Night.
Oh. There you go. Hey, it does say prime time, so who knows? That'll be interesting to see once we get there in a year what exactly they're planning with that. Now, here's the added wrinkle. The Hollywood Reporter mentioned in lots of media coverage about this today. They specifically mentioned towards the end of their article that Monday Night Raw and NXT will continue to air on USA Network through September 24. There's been nothing done with deals involving Raw or NXT yet. So my initial thought was, oh my God, they're trying to get everything back under the USA umbrella, probably with the idea that have everything on Peacock. The Peacock streaming rights are coming up. So you could have everything together, but that might not necessarily be the case here. Apparently, there is lots of talk that there is extensive interest in Raw from a number of sources, both linear TV, and possibly streaming. So a deal for Raw has not been done. Nothing is official, including Raw. And I guess there's two ways to think of this here. One, they're trying to get everything back under NBC, which I could totally see making sense. Like I said, with the idea that the streaming rates have been on Hulu, which are also up. But it would make a heck of a lot of sense in my mind if you had everything together and then had next day streaming on Peacock. That's a tidy little package you have there. Thing is, $1.4 billion just for SmackDown. I think that's going to cost a lot of money to pull that off. So here's the other idea possibly in my head, and I'm going to throw it to you guys, is what's possibly going on here that there's so much interest in Raw that they already know that we can't afford to keep Raw. The price is going to go way up on Raw. So we're getting SmackDown with the idea that at least we still have something major that's WWE if we're losing Raw on Monday nights because it's going to some other network out there of some sort. Damien, I'm going to go to you first. What's your thoughts on this with how this is played out today with SmackDown going to USA?
Well, to go back to what we're saying about the USA kind of panicking almost, knowing that Raw may not be on their channel any longer, it goes back to when it started. Raw started on USA, bringing wrestling into prime time on a daily or weekly basis, the whole weekly episodic television show bit. So the thought of it not being on USA or any WWE programming for the network itself, I think for all of us longtime followers of WWE would have been kind of, I don't know. It reminds me of the TNN days where it's like, wait a minute, whoa. USA isn't going to have a WWE programming. They because some people forgot the TNN days.
The Spike TV era.
That existed. So just for me personally as a longtime fan, you don't think about that, but in reality, the networks do. Like, look, we've had this show for how long? Yeah, we need to keep something of this fan base coming into whatever USA show that's going to bleed over at the 11 o'clock hour, be it Silk Stockings, Pacific Blue 2.0, or whichever,
it back.
Or whatever was it, First Night or something like that with the weird crime report and like Castle reruns, like, something like that. So for me personally, I think it's a survival method of USA to keep the WWE banner on their programming, because with this new merger, like you said, think about the other options they could have had. They can take this anywhere. It could go to a cable streaming service. It could go to some sort of like privatized, like Amazon or anything of that ilk. So for USA as a cable channel to still be able to hold any kind of WWE programming, I take that as a win. So good for them.
So I'm reading the actual Hollywood Reporter article, and it says, and I quote the article, NBC Universal, which owns USA and NBC, has been in business with WWE for decades. Okay, cool. And reading further, it says, while the new deal will bring WWE to NBC primetime and SmackDown to USA on Friday nights, it will also mean the end of Raw and NXT on USA.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, fine. They're going to add Saturday night shows or something like that. But realistically, Raw on NBC is the move. When does it air? Because does Tuesday Night Raw happen? Does Wednesday Night Raw happen? Now maybe not, because they gave NBC gave Chicago its own day. Law and Order has Tuesdays. But does Thursday Night Raw happen and Friday Night SmackDown happen? Logistically for WWE, that makes sense. As far as like booking arenas, they could easily do multi-day events or hell, even Canada one show. Raw could still be 3 hours because primetime on NBC is from 8 to 11 Eastern.
Very true.
Okay, cool. But I think that just because it's on NBC doesn't mean it's going to be on Mondays.
Right.
That's going to be interesting. As far as the whole leaving USA Network, I don't know where so many loyal fans of USA Network came out of the woodwork today with their clutching their USA Letterman jackets.
USA will never lose Raw, I was told today emphatically.
Except when it happened before.
Right. There is precedence for this. It has happened before.
And nobody gave a shit about USA when it left. So it wasn't like people were like holding a candlelight vigil outside of their New York studios or anything like that. So I'm less worried about that. Which, of course, if you're NBC, that frees up more real estate for sports. We've already seen what Disney has done with the XFL on FX, or branching out throughout their cable spectrum instead of just dumping everything on ESPN Plus. So I think the NBC would be smart to do a similar thing with whatever sports they're going to have. Maybe not football, but if they could pick up an extra hockey day, they could pick up an extra, basketball day, or whatever the thing is. Maybe it's Monday Night Football, but cool. We could also have NBA Mondays on NBC on USA Network. They already use it for the Olympics. They already use it for other sports things. So I think I wouldn't necessarily cry a river about USA losing Raw. As far as bringing Raw to the masses, and when I say the masses, I mean 99% of households have a television. Those televisions get NBC.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form, they will get NBC. So you don't have to pay for that.
Right.
That's
not
not
with Fox.
Yeah, that's what you do. So I've long said that AEW should be on CBS. That should be the move that they should try to make work, because of the fact that they have so many other sports and streaming outlets, assuming that TNT and Turner deal doesn't get renewed. I like the idea of Raw on NBC. I like the idea that it creates more integration with their other NBC properties. I like the idea of it being on Peacock the next day. And then of course, if it goes back, and if you're old enough to, this is the thing about getting old. You think that everything is new until you're old enough to remember how it happens. And the way that it used to be is that you would book the shows for the pay-per-view. And then the network came out, and now they're booking pay-per-views for Raw.
Right.
And then now that the network is kind of, transformed into whatever it is now, they're going back to booking shows for the pay-per-view. Because everybody and their mother has access to a TV, they have access to NBC. So now that we have access to NBC, how do we get the payoff? How do we get the come up? Oh, we got to go to Peacock for that. You got to go to Peacock Premium for that. So they have essentially gone back to the analog way of booking the product they could, as to book the show for the pay-per-view again, making pay-per-views more special. Yes, hopping on Peacock for the pay-per-view at $10 a month may be a drop in the bucket for you compared to $50-$60 that it used to be. Right. But for NBC, getting an extra couple million people on Peacock, as part of their and bolstering their resume from their live sports with just soccer and stuff like that they have, and Sunday Night Football live on Peacock and everything like that, and movies and whatever from Universal, it totally makes sense that WrestleMania feels more special. Pay-per-views feel more special, because now that everybody has access to Raw, I have to see the pay-per-view now. So I think that could be a thing that we go back to that pre-WWE network way of booking. And I would like to see it change, that way. And they have some really hot, things going on right now. The Bloodline, Judgment Day is a big deal. And the only way to see the big payoff would be to get Peacock. Smart move if you're NBC, because they need people, because the streaming thing, people don't realize that this streaming thing is not a winning business model.
It's becoming cable TV all over again. With all
and
the
it has to.
Yeah.
It has to, because you can't slice the pie so many different ways and expect the foundation to still be solvent. I'm not going to pay for everything. I'm only going to pay for one thing. Don't give me a choice. And that's what cable was. We didn't have a choice in what we watched or what we were offered. It was $100 a month or whatever the thing was, and you got all of it. And if you wanted a little bit more, you paid a little bit more. Now that you can slice the pie, well, if you're asking me to choose between Peacock and Disney Plus, somebody's going to win or lose. If you're asking me to choose between Paramount and Hulu, somebody's going to win or lose. So giving more incentive for people to watch Peacock, which is what they need, NBC needs people to do, makes sense. So bringing Raw to NBC, bringing NXT to NBC, I don't know where that's going to fit.
Because that can stay on USA. You never know.
It could, but it does say And I quote the article: while the new deal will bring WWE to NBC primetime and SmackDown to USA Fridays, it will mean the end of Raw and NXT on USA. So this Hollywood Reporter article is kind of putting the nail in the coffin on Raw and NXT on the USA Network.
It was definitely interesting wording. One thing I think they've gotten right with this last configuration they had with Fox, USA, and Peacock is that they were everywhere they needed to be. You had broadcast television that anyone could get with an antenna. You got SmackDown. They were on old school cable with Raw and USA. And then you got the Peacock deal for everything else for streaming. So any platform you had, if you just had streaming, you had WWE. If you just got a rabbit ear antenna, you got WWE. Right. They were anywhere they needed to be. So the idea of them, if they could somehow get Raw on NBC, that's a hell of a move in my mind. And it honestly, short of like getting a boatload of damn money to like move to some streaming service. I mean, I hear people kicking around the idea that Raw is going to go to Amazon. Jeff Bezos is going to pony up all this money. It's like putting it behind a paywall, even if it's Amazon, the only way I'd go that route, it would have to be a ton of money, a ridiculous amount of money to go that route. Because the worth of being on like broadcast and just having that much visibility to people is invaluable. And especially when you already have a streaming arm with Peacock, and that deal's not up. The Peacock part for the pay-per-views, that's still got a couple years on it. So that's not part of this. Yeah, if they can somehow USA move to NBC would be tremendous in my mind if they can pull that off, but who knows? Part of me thinks if that was happening or at least possibility, you would kind of think it would have been announced all at once. So I don't know, but I guess anything's possible. Hell,
where do you think NXT lands up, though? I mean, I think that's kind of the odd man out.
Peacock,
don't get me wrong.
Maybe just on Peacock like it used to be.
It
still is. Yeah.
Maybe off our television screens completely. That's an option a lot of people haven't really talked about, especially when we get to like the releases and such. But for me personally, NXT hasn't been must-see TV in a long time, and I used to be an ardent NXT watcher. Now, when the 2.0 turned to kind of like 2.0 black and gold-ish, still really hasn't taken a lot of people's attention. That's why you had Becky Lynch going over to NXT to, work with Tiffany and whatnot. So who's to say it's going to be on television anymore after this? It might just go back to doing a whole like, hey, let's tape 4 shows in one day and then just put them on half an hour at a time, on any kind of like network. So I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird time in wrestling for business. Just weird.
But I also think that this is part of it when it comes to the leveraging, traditional TV, cable TV versus streaming versus mobile. And I think that that's also a thing that people don't consider as well, is that the viewing public and their options are so plenty. It's too many options.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously you could say like, well, that's dumb. Obviously more options are better for the consumer. Sure. I'm glad that I have as many options as I do for things. However, if you are WWE and you're not just fighting, your other I was going to say in state, but your other competition within the wrestling realm, or Impact, your AEW, MOW, whatever, Twitch streams and YouTube and the like, Japanese stuff as well. You are really fighting everything all at once. And how do you get people to watch your show? Now, the real is, I think it's Raw needs to be 2 hours.
That'd be perfect.
Raw needs to be 2 hours. I don't care if they had like a studio show at 8 that hype the pregame show or whatever that hypes up Raw. Maybe a 30-minute rewind, look back at last week, and then a 30-minute studio show live, and then Raw live at 9:00. Something for the casual fans to catch up on, and then something for the the hardcore fans to get more of. But yeah, I think that's number one. Raw needs to be 2 hours. Raw 9 to 11 would be a-okay. That's the way they started. That's the way they should finish it. NXT, I do think, moves to Peacock Premium, and it just airs when it airs, and then SmackDown is Friday nights on USA. I don't know how long Raw is going to be 3 hours. I don't know if that's. I mean, they're probably going to want to make that a thing, but I would rather see a 3-hour event than 3 hours of wrestling.
Yeah. No, for weekly TV, 2 hours is definitely better than 3 hours. I mean, it was 3 hours on USA just to help with the rating there. But I think if they can get it off USA and it goes to NBC or a major network, then I doubt they would give a whole night to them. I could totally see a scenario where some other stuff is on from 8 to 9. Hell, they got an hour or something, or hour or some reality show or something.
That's the thing, though.
Completely unrelated thing to WWE. Then WWE comes on at 9.
NBC doesn't really do reality shows, and also they have given the entire night to somebody. They've given Law and Order on Tuesdays,
right?
They've given
those
Chicago.
Those are franchise shows for them, though. That's
well, I mean, they are now because Chicago just came out recently. Law and Order's been on a thing for like 25 years, but they've given these themed nights to particular properties that they have. Does that mean that we're going to start seeing John Cena or Chicago PD? I don't know, but.
No, but to your point, it's WWE night is something that I didn't even think of that maybe NBC could do, considering that, a lot of the shows that we would put out or produce have been on strike, and who's to say about the SAG-AFTRA thing continuing on, and who's to say we're going to get better television shows because we're talking about all of our attention spans being pulled in different directions. So there very well may just be a WWE centric primetime night. I mean, they canceled Young Rock. They should just bring that back now just for the shits and giggles of it all. But who's to say? Law and Order night, Chicago night, wrestling night, not out the realm of possibility.
Yeah. At this point with the strike, I figure anything's possible as far as like the way they're going to fill time this fall. Hell, I mean, they're already throwing Monday Night Football back on ABC instead of ESPN because we got time to fill simulcasting on both. So anything's possible, I figure, as far as that goes. All right. So SmackDown news started the day, and then from there, things got interesting. The rumors started that there might be some cuts incoming. We had last Friday a number of cuts behind the scenes. About 100 office staff were let go in various different departments, which we knew this was coming with the merger. Last week's show was all about the merger and TKO Holdings being created, and new ownership. They're going to go over the books. They're going to look at stuff. So today, so far, I'm assuming there haven't been any added in the last 20 minutes while we've been on the air. But by last count, there were 16 releases today between the main roster and NXT later in the day. So I'm going to run down the list here just to set the table of who has been released. So biggest names at the top here. Dolph Ziggler after, a number of maybe 15 years, maybe more. I mean, he goes back. Ziggles goes back. I mean, it's all his Spirit Squad. So Dolph Ziggler has been released. Shelton Benjamin has been released. Elias has been released. Mustafa Ali was the first one we heard about. He has been released. Emma has been released along with Madcap Moss. Aaliyah has been released. Another one who's been there, had probably the longest NXT run of anyone in the history of NXT, probably. Top Dollar of Hit Row, Rick Boogs, Daba Kato, our former Commander Aziz.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was released. Bryson Montana, an NXT name that I don't know if he ever made TV. I'm not sure. I don't remember the name. Shanky, another NXT and sometimes main roster guy. Pour one out for our next two. Our maximum male models, Mace and Mansoor. Longtime favorites. These are the ones that upset me. These are the ones that upset me here. Mansoor is gone. And to finish up the list, Quincy Miller and Dana Brooke, another longtime name that has been around for quite some time. So 16 total. Who knows if everyone got noticed today? There might be more happening tomorrow. I don't know, but that's a lot of names. The initial thing that got me is like, okay, a lot of people that have been there a long time, a lot of people that, were kind of haven't been doing much with them lately. A lot of people who just, they're there, but not real outside of Mustafa Ali, who is figured into things in NXT currently. And who else? Dana Brooke's been doing some stuff in NXT here and there. So she's been around. Everybody else on there.
Aaliyah was a two-time champion, no? A two-time tag team champion?
That's right. Yeah, I think she's been out injured.
Yes.
So Shelton hasn't been around much lately. Dolph, would pop up here and there, but Mustafa Ali was probably the most active as far as people on that list. But I guess initial reactions, then we can get into who's got a future here. Who's got some who we looking to see do something? Yes, 6'8" Jake. They dropped Top Dollar again. People come and go. People come and go. That is what happens.
He'll be back.
So to answer your question, is there any response? Like, I'll just jump in and say this doesn't surprise me at all. It never does. I love when the internet gets all up in outrage of all the Dabba-Kato fans out there talking about this was unfair. This is unfortunately the cost of mergers in business. We do this every year. We have this exact show when Bloody Tuesday or whatever day it'll be.
Like Trash Bag Day.
Yeah, Trash Bag Day. We have
Happy.
this show. People are sad for 5 minutes, except for maybe the most top tier names on the list. So what are we looking at? Mustafa, Dana Brooke, and the Maximum Male Models. Were any of these people beating up your screens? No, except for Mustafa, who was a free agent, which is probably the most they gave him to work with since he was, the SmackDown hacker. Great talent,
right, yeah.
Great talent, but WWE was never going to get behind him much as the IWC would lead you to believe. Dana Brooke, been there as a super duper trooper senior along with Aaliyah, up, down, back down. Never really got a run with, except with not the hardcore championship. What was it? 24/7 title.
Right.
And
24.
And she tried to make it something. Like, to her credit, she tried to elevate that title, albeit when Becky Lynch pooped on it in live air, whatever, that doesn't matter. So what are we sad about? Are we sad about people losing their jobs? Yeah, that sucks. That fucking blows when people lose their jobs in any economy. Are people getting fired up from their dream? That makes it sad as well. Cool. But at what point are we just going to say, this is normal. This is normal. It doesn't matter if you're JTG or Top Dollar or Aaliyah or Mustafa. It's Samoa Joe got cut. Things are going to happen. I'm not surprised by this anymore. I don't even have an ardent reaction to it like most people. But what cracks me up is just the amount of people who swear now that they're Shanky fans, when in reality, my man, was a dance machine, Great Khali circa 2.0, to do the dance gimmick. But this isn't surprising. So I'm just excited to see if any of these people land on their feet in other promotions, or just if they leave wrestling altogether. So that's the only thing for me that I'm looking forward to seeing. Again, the human story is people lost their jobs. That fucking sucks. But aside from that, this is nothing new. So I don't understand the typical outrage that we're seeing.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on a couple of things you said, because the first thing you said was people losing their job, and it sucks. Not if you're not good. I mean, that's kind of the thing. I mean, you have to be able to produce results in order environment. Correct. None of these fires, to your point, are unjustified. These are people that have been bubbling, have made it known that they want to do something else. Ziggler, I'm not going to say he's been dogging it, but he's definitely been
cruise control.
He's definitely been lame duck.
How many years has he been getting a check? I mean, over a decade, easily.
20, damn near 20. If it ain't 20, it's got to be 19. Yeah. But so we used to look at Mustafa Ali, Emma. I didn't know she was even back. Elias, Top Dollar, Aaliyah stealing checks from NXT for the past 7-8 years. Shelton Benjamin, Dolph Ziggler. These aren't names where you go, how will the company survive without them?
Correct.
And if you're looking to make cuts, these aren't like malicious, petty cuts on the surface. Maybe they are backstage, but on the surface, these are, now the question is, how much money do they actually save by cutting all these people? Because I can't imagine that these are high dollar value talent. I can't imagine Top Dollar.
That might be part of why there's 16 of them. Add it all up and it becomes something.
Exactly. Correct. So I can't imagine why Top Dollar is commanding a king's ransom by himself. But it is kind of like, well, no, if you had to cut someone, you would start hereish. Ali didn't want to be there.
Nope.
Ziggler's been on the way out. You're not using Shelton Benjamin. Dana Brooke has been, kind of been behind the 8 ball for the last 5 or something years. They could have done anything with Mansoor. They could have done anything with Marseille, and they didn't. And it is kind of what it is. Now, the reason why, yes, the firing, that is terrible, as far as the fact that these people woke up today looking to go to work, and then they're not going to finish the week, but they're also going to get paid for the next 3 months. So there's that. There is some solace that if you're going to cry crocodile tears for everybody. However, I do want to see, and I'm hopeful for the future, because Ali was putting out those training videos,
yes,
and about how he's going to go out there and do something. Please let me go. We know that Ziggler's brother in AEW, would they join up and get a run and together? Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable, Cedric Alexander, to be honest with you, really been handcuffed by WWE as far as their potential. I don't think Benjamin has peaked, and he's been there a good long while.
Right.
So if this is his last run, 5-year run, I want to see him rip shit up. Whether it's in a high-powered indies, maybe it's an AEW, maybe it's an Impact, but I want to see. I don't think a lot of these guys that I'm mentioning, and I'm not mentioning some of the other ones. I think a lot of these guys are wrestling to pay the bills. I think they're wrestling, for the wrestling. That's their job. That's what they want to do, and they'll do that anyway. And I think everybody that we've been naming, as far as the bigger names that we're going to see, have enough name power to go out there, be the big fish in a small pond on an indie show, and command $1 and get back to work. I don't know what Bryson Montana or Daniel MacArthur or Kevin Ventura Cortez is going to do. I don't know what Alexis Gray is going to do. I'm sure there's a Del Taco on their town, but sometimes you just got to start back over. We've all been there. We've all had that feeling where somebody's told you your services are no longer needed. Here's your shit and get in the cab and go home.
That's any job.
That's any job. That's
Mm-hmm.
any job. It doesn't matter what the job is. Your life kind of flashes, your work life flashes before your eyes, and you realize that, what could I have done? What could I have done this before? Who did I piss off? How do I learn from this? How do I grow from this? And I think because they're wrestlers, I don't see anybody, can't come back and pick this thing back up.
Yeah.
Like crazy wild scenario. Dana Brooke goes on a hell of a run on the indies.
Let's hold that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hold that right there. Let's take our mid-show break. We come back. That's why I specifically want to get into, of the people on this list, who has a chance to go somewhere, who has a chance to do something, and which of these people, because some of these folks, this is going to happen. This is the flip side. There's some folks who are going to get cut here that we ain't just ever going to hear from again. There's two sides of the story here. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Thanks for being with us here tonight, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast will be back right after this.
Big Gold Belt Media is your golden standard for all of your media needs. Visit biggoldbelt.com for pro wrestling info, movies, comics, and even more digital content. On all of your social medias, follow us at Big Gold Belt all across the board. Listen to this show and more on your SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, folks. Second half of your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We were getting into it before the break. The slew of releases from WWE today, about 16 of them that we know of so far. Could be some other ones percolating out there that might not have picked up their phone or something. But as we were getting into, a lot of lower level names, some NXT faces, people who've been around a while. No one I would describe as like a big time person that were like, has been really figured into things, have been like, on Peacock, on the pay-per-views all the time. So what this turns into for me is I guess another detail we should bring up real quick is that from all accounts, everyone here's gotten the 90-day release cycle.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of contracts ending where people can, immediately go out and start looking for stuff immediately. We're looking at 90 days. So, which will be right at the holidays when people will apparently be free and clear. Mansoor confirmed that today in his little statement he made that December 20th, he's looking for bookings. So looking at these names, there's, the people that okay, Shelton Benjamin, we know he's done Japan before. He's done stuff out there. Dolph Ziggler, God, I mean, he's been around so long. He did OVW before he got to WWE. He's a guy where I'm like, I could see it going one of two ways. Either he might have an interest in doing stuff out there, or he might also be like, I've been doing this for 20 damn years. I'm ready to do something else.
Just do my stand-up.
Exactly. I mean, we know he has his hands in our stuff. And as you all mentioned, he's someone who's kind of been coasting for a while. But is that just because of his environment, or could this possibly light a fire under him and, make him want to do something else out there? Mustafa Ali, Lord knows here we go. Mustafa Ali is probably the one that is the case of, you've said you've wanted a chance to do something else. Well, now you got it. So let's see. Here you go. Ball's in your court now. So come December, is Mustafa Ali going to show up somewhere? Because he's got all the talent in the world. And it's been a good year of him making it known that he'd like to do other stuff or, have an opportunity. And, say what you will about WWE. I mean, a guy with all that talent, and they tried different stuff with him. They definitely tried different things. It's not like he was never given opportunities. He was given opportunities, but none of them ever seemed to click just, in the best way possible. So maybe in someone else's hands, different ball game for him, but I don't know. Looking at that list, Damian, who's someone you want to see elsewhere? Maybe you got any specific ideas in mind as someone like that might tear it up in a specific place?
Here's what I want to see. You said Mustafa. Well, we can talk about that, but I want to see Dana Brooke go to Impact, and I want to see how she works with that roster, because even at the lowest end of that totem pole over at Impact, those are still legitimately great wrestlers to work within that division. Because we talk about, when wrestlers go over to the land of all elite and then they get lost in the shuffle 2 minutes later. And then we've talked about the fact that Tony and Co. can't book the women's division to save their life. Well, Dana wanted a chance for how long? So why not go to Impact and try there to work with women's wrestlers, or just wrestlers, period, who take their craft. I'm not saying people don't take their craft seriously elsewhere, but if you are a certain type of wrestler, you go there, you'll sink or swim really quickly. Or
you're going to be given the platform. You're going to get an opportunity.
Or you'll find the niche that suits you potentially. God knows Johnny Swinger is 95 years old, still working Impact dates. So who's to say she wouldn't be able to thrive over there? Mustafa, I think he could literally just be a trainer at this point in his life, have his own wrestling school, and not have to put his body on the line, like we say, for a long period of time. Because if you've seen people tweeting in the Midwest today, Chicago freelance, he could pretty much just buy freelance and run that as promotion of his own self. And he doesn't have to take a lot of physical beatings to make a living, because he's been a great trainer out there in the Chicagoan area. So that's a route he could take. Do I want to see him in Japan? Yeah. Do I want to see him in Impact? Hell yes, because I think he would freshen up the Impact men's division as well. But as far as like Dolph Ziggler, everyone's claiming that he should go to AEW. No, I think he's the one that needs to go to Japan. I think if he really wants to steal the show, he can go over to Japan. Shit, he could go to DDT Wrestling and infiltrate that and fight people on a train and be entertaining and sell people, sell getting super kicked on like a bullet train in Osaka. So for me personally, that is where I can see a lot of these talents going, because AEW is not the place. I'm sorry. If I see one of these 3 or 4 people show up at AEW, I'm just going to yawn. And I know Jamal can chime in, being the Advent AEW correspondent, but that's where I can see most of these people going. Or just take a break. How about y'all just rest your bodies? How about y'all try something different? Like you said, Will, about good old Dolphy Boy doing stand-up. Try something different. You don't have to be taking bumps, for another 3 months. Just see what you can get. And if you tear up the indie scene, great. Because, Jamal, the indie spotlight better than I do now. So maybe there are promotions out there that these people can thrive in. And if you know any, you can, drop it off for us here. But that's what I want to see. I want to see people try something different and not just, I'm going to go to AEW. Okay, what else you got? So that's why I stand on that.
Yeah, I think the big thing is to figure out why you're doing this.
Correct.
Personally, as a fan that doesn't owe any of these people any money, I want to see them do the activity because they enjoy the activity and not necessarily because this is what their job is. So if the handcuffs were on and WWE did a thing and whatever, I think that there's some really creative people out there that's on this list. Now, obviously, we're naming the people that we know because there are a lot of people from the NXT side of things that I don't know on this list. So they may fall a little bit harder to the bottom and have to pick themselves up. It may take them longer to pick themselves back up. But Elias, for example, is horribly creative, and everything that they've given him, he's managed to get over to some degree. Now, as far as him being a wrestler, sure, but I think that his creativity, in like a Damian Sandow kind of a way, we'll have him go a lot farther than somebody like Top Dollar, who is not the showman and not the wrestler that he thinks he is. But Shelton Benjamin, world-class wrestler. Mustafa Ali, world-class wrestler. Elias, not a bad wrestler. Mansoor, not a bad wrestler. So it will be interesting. Dana Brooke, 2024, it's the year of Dana Brooke. I want to see them take more chances and get back into the wrestling for wrestling's sake, and not just jump from one mediocre gimmick to another mediocre gimmick because you are on jump from WWE to AEW. And that's also something to consider too. There is no more dark. There is no more elevation. So there is no more quick paydays where you can just come in for a couple spots and make your name that way. You kind of have to be established if you want to break into AEW, because they're not going to do it for you. You have to get yourself over. When they say independent contractor, they mean independent, because it's all on you, to get it done. And if you don't come in with a gimmick that's going to be viable for TV, then they're going to put you behind the paywall of honor, or on Rampage, which actually may be worse. But I think Elias can pull it off. I think Mustafa can pull it off. I think Shelton Benjamin can pull it off. I think Ziggler can pull it off. But what about the guys that that never really had that chance, that got let go? I think those may be the ones that may be the biggest surprise. Like, I've not seen Commander Aziz outside of WWE. What does that look like? Yeah. I've not seen Mansoor outside of WWE. What does that look like? And I hope, I've seen Aaliyah up in Canada many years ago when she was doing her thing on the Indies. But maybe she learned something that this, brown skin Britt Breaker, that ain't the gimmick for you. You gotta come back with something else. So it will be interesting to see how people rebuild. And I think that's the thing that I'm going to be looking forward to over the next 90 days. Mark this date down, December 20th, 2023. That's when a lot of the 90-day non-competes will be up for the WWE folk. The NXT thing, I think it's 45 days. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's right. It's usually a shorter deal. Yeah.
But 90 days. So just before Christmas, December 20th, that's where we're going to start hearing and seeing the names. That's where we're going to start seeing the teases. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see, formerly known as whoever the hell, come out and do their thing on their own terms. And if you can't have it both ways. People complain about WWE putting the handcuffs on folk and, stifling their creativity. Well, now that they have the opportunity and a full palette, let's see what they do with it. Now, this isn't the way that obviously anybody would want them to go about it, but I would rather Mustafa Ali be released today than go through another year of begging for it on Twitter.
Yeah. It's sink or swim time. So we'll see in 3 months what happens. It's going to make for an interesting start to 2024. So there's suddenly going to be a lot of people on the free market out there for some of these companies. I mean, hell, we got MLW out there. You got Impact out there. You got all these smaller companies. If you're a promoter,
but you also have these super indies that are doing things with Japan. So we were talking about what's that thing called? Prestige Wrestling doing thing with the DDT. You had a Gato Move and Pro Wrestling Eve show. So it's not like the wrestling world isn't just, oh no, I'm outside of WWE, now I got to go back to working at Jack in the Box. It's like, no, there are things, and Japan is a lot closer than ever because New Japan Strong is a thing out in LA. The Japanese are coming west. So if you can make it to Oregon, there's a show for you. And if you have enough of a name, you can get over. So the UK has opened back up as far as their indie scene. Germany, France as well. So I'm not saying that it's going to be easy versus knowing that you got to be in Cincinnati on Monday, but I think hopefully it'll be a lot more fun. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
There you go. All right, let's switch gears. We've been talking a lot about WWE and all their drama today. Earlier in the week, there was a bit of excitement with we've talked a lot about Max and Max getting into streaming and live sports and all this. And, there's been rumblings for a long time. And I think it was Monday. Yeah, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, one of the two. This week has really flown by for me. They came out with the announcement finally that Max is going to be adding a sports tier. It's going to cost you $10 extra. So they're not just including it. They're not just giving you sports on top of what they already have. Hold that thought. They technically are for 3 months. Then they're going to pull it away just in time for March Madness.
Go figure.
Yeah. They're going to give you that taste, but then they're going to charge you for it. It's going to cost you $10 on top of your base subscription. But Max will be adding sports, which got a lot of people's attention because we've been talking about this for a long time about, them having live events on there. The interesting twist was in their announcement, they made it very clear that they led with the MLB playoffs in October are going to be on there. A number of NBA games are going to be on there. The NHL is going to be on there. And U.S. soccer is going to be on there.
Huh.
Missing completely from this announcement in every way, shape, and form is AEW, which had a lot of wrestling. I think that might be part of it. Hold that thought. I think that might be part of it. Since they are marketing this definitely as their sports tier, but they definitely had a lot of disappointed wrestling fans that day who were, why isn't AEW part of this? Why isn't AEW in this? We thought the pay-per-views would be on here now. And it's like, people don't seem to, at no point has anything ever officially been said or through anyone of any authority saying, we're trying to get on Max or we're, I think they've made hints of wanting to, and it'd be ideal. It'd be a great thing to happen, but there's never been anything to the point of there's wheels in motion. There's talk about maybe the Wembley show would have been on Max. Well, it came and went, and it wasn't. So yeah, I think so. Here's my question. Since it's not happening yet, and like we said, they're going to go for 3 months, and then they're going to start charging right before March Madness. Smart move on their part. They're going to make you pay if you want to see March Madness. Throw down the $10 for it. So, do you think next year AEW ends up on Max with their pay-per-views as part of this deal? Or is it going to be are they still going to have to be something separate? I mean, that's the thing that was kind of jumping out at me is if they're going to charge $10 more, baseball going to want some of that $10. NBA going to want some of that $10. NHL's on there too. They're going to want some of that $10. They got heavy hitters at the table here. So how's this going to work?
Well,
can AEW get on there, you think?
I think that I'm going to speak for baseball. It is starting with the National League Division Series. Mm-hmm. Now, I do believe those games would air on TBS anyway, and would be produced by Turner.
Yes.
So it's not like they're doing anybody a favor by taking away from somebody. They are just able to allow those things to be in one space under the sports banner for Max. And it also doesn't say that the NLDS or any of the baseball players that would be covered on Turner would be exclusive to Max, because that
it's like they're simulcasting.
That would be dumb. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it is. And notice that they're starting before March Madness, because March Madness broadcast on Turner, True TV, all the other things. So I think instead of having to find True TV on your TV, you can just pay $9.99 and see 4 games in one, or whatever the fluff is. Maybe they have it in 4K. I don't know, but they would need some incentive, because why would I pay, unless it's going to be an exclusive deal and you're moving the thing that was free per cable to behind the paywall, which is dumb. Why would I pay for a simulcast? You would have to bring me something in addition to that. With that said, though, where does AEW fit in? AEW is a TV show. Now, if you were to say that, well, TNT or Turner and their scripted television shows, TNT, TBS, True TV, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, or whatever, if they're being bundled in one thing, then where does AEW fit into that? Because that's how I think Warner Brothers views the product. I think they view the product as a scripted television show and not a live sporting event. I think that this is no different than the Beat Shazam live. if you're a marketing guy, if you're an ad guy, if you're a TV executive, I don't think this is any different than The Bachelorette being live.
Zero.
It's like reality TV, essentially.
That's what this is.
That's what it is.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a scripted television show. It's not a sporting event.
It's not a sporting event.
We've been told this since we were kids. This is not a sport. This is sports.
It's the intersection of sports and entertainment. So I've heard.
It's medieval times, like I like to say. So it's one of those things where, why would you want this as part of your sports tier? I understand if it was shoot wrestling, like, okay, great. We can get like actual shoot wrestling, like what is it, Foxcatcher with the Pod family, like something like that. Sure, I could see someone wanting to watch maybe college wrestling. Great. But AEW? No.
Right.
This is the big boy table. You know what I mean? Like you said, NBA, MLB, NHL. No, you don't belong here, wrestling. Go play over there. No, sorry.
And notice that they mentioned things that they already produce. They cover basketball on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or whatever. Mm-hmm. They cover hockey on Wednesdays. Right. They cover March Madness during that time in March, and they cover baseball towards the end of the year in the playoffs. So it's not like they're and whatever U.S. soccer ball games that are going on, cool. But it's just that and I actually disagree with that, because you watch sports because it's sports. You watch entertainment because it's entertainment. You know, it doesn't have to be both. With that said, though, it is kind of like a thing where they're trying to segment things, where they had CNN Max, which is going to be this news buffet, and then they have a sports buffet. And I wonder what's going to happen to the rest of it, your traditional television buffet, which is just going to be 17 hours of Charmed episodes, or
oh god,
all those Discovery Channel shows they have. Maybe that's kind of what AEW ends up getting lumped in with, is like, this is our slate of reality programming, and they get kind of lumped in with that side of it. Now, right. If that ends up happening as where they're not part of the sports tier, it might end up being beneficial for wrestling fans if they don't have to pay an extra $10 for it to be part of it as part of the base subscription instead. But I figured there's a lot in play here, because we got to remember they have deals in place for the pay-per-views. So there's some sort of contracts that were out there already for pay-per-view distribution. So
yeah, because Bleacher Report, they were showing the pay-per-views on Bleacher Report.
Right,
so
that was their streaming version, but they're still on traditional pay-per-view too. Correct. On top of that. So it could easily be a situation where certain deals have to expire before they can change what they're doing. I mean, there could be a lot of things involved. I don't think it's as simple as just throw them on Max. I mean, how, like we've been kind of saying from the beginning, back when it was HBO Max, I mean, from the jump, if they wanted them on there, it could have happened a long time ago. And clearly it hasn't for some reason.
Right.
You know, if 2 James is here, he'd be jumping all over this.
I'm
his
sure.
Dealings with Warner Brothers and their whole entertainment division, and just, you know, something, for some reason, there hasn't been an interest in doing this quickly, at least.
So I want to jump in on what Jake is saying here, that it's largely semantics. Wrestling is an athletic competition, even if scripted, just like any traditional sports. And then he goes on to say people consume it as entertainment. that is well and true. But if you're marketing a sports add-on to your network of $9.99, if you're a diehard sports fan who doesn't view wrestling as sport, not out of our bubble, why would that be in there? Our bubble, albeit whatever size it is in the wrestling world, is that enough to say, yeah, put AEW on there and I'm going to get my $10? No. You put NBA and NHL in there, that'll get my $10, and I'm a wrestling fan. But I can see why a network wouldn't view it as such, because they're thinking away from us and the big picture in entertainment and thinking, well, you can't bet on wrestling results. I mean, you can, but it's not something you can really bet on. So why put on a sports channel? Back when, okay, prime example, when we were kids, we had in the East Coast, we had Sports Channel, which the Mets were on, channel 26. They had their own before the whole these like separate networks. You had to pay extra to watch the Mets. Just like when the Yankees went to Yes, you had to pay extra to watch the Yankees. But WWE stuff was still on MSG Network. You didn't have to pay extra for that. So you can find a general sports network on regular cable or whatever regular streaming that's not an add-on, and throw that on there, provided if you're having, let's say, Hulu and you have commercials, something like that. But including it in your WWE sports-centric add-on.
Two James heard us.
Oh, did he? Oh, here he is. Hello, sir.
He said what he said. They don't care about AEW.
Thank you. And to tie the bow on it, they don't care about AEW enough to include it, and that's okay. That's quite okay. But let me just deviate really quick before we have to wrap up and say, I see what's happening with television and streaming and all these options that Jamal said earlier. This is no better. It's probably even worse than when we had cable. Like, we're going to all wind up paying $150 a month for all these goddamn streaming services just to get what we want to watch. We're going to take Max here, Netflix here, Disney Plus here. Like, what? Cutting the cord is what? Okay, we cut the cord, but now what do we cut the stream? Like, what are we doing now as a consumer? We're falling into the same trap. So I get why the networks are doing it, but for all of us who are paying $9 here, $10 here, $12 here, what's the difference between this and cable?
It's actually worse, because
watch out for Tubi.
Not only did we cut the cord, but we cut the cord and added the internet.
Right.
Because you need that to even get into the door. So it's actually much worse than what cable it is. I mean, like the point is that I don't think, and I do personally agree with the sentiment of AEW is not viewed as a sports show. I do not think that wrestling should be viewed as a sports programming by the nature of the fact that it's scripted. So I'm just going to just full stop. With that said, because of that, I think because Warner Brothers and Discovery haven't really moved on their traditional scripted, generally hourly programming, I think that we would see, if AEW were to land somewhere, it would land next to Deadliest Catch, right? And they promoted Shark Week. That's what it is. That's where they are in the ecosystem. They are a TV show that happens to be live.
Live athletic competition, James.
Yeah, but so is Big Brother, but that's not sports either.
Yeah, I can give it live athletic
American Gladiators.
American Gladiators, boom. Reality TV, because that's what American Gladiators was. It's a game show.
Yeah, but so that's what it is. I mean, Money in the Bank is actually a game show, but it's a thing. I mean, and I think that in general, also because of AEW, I think the expectations for AEW may have actually been increased. At first, it was any ratings are good ratings because we don't know what we're getting. And now it's just like, oh, we're actually a thing. How do we get better at this? And we haven't seen the growth that I think that they should be having. So maybe it is kind of on AEW to go, well, they're good. Maybe they've peaked. We don't have to invest in them. Also, they're really cheap to produce, and we only distribute them because that's up to Khan to produce the show. Right. So the only thing we need to do is distribute it. We don't really care. It doesn't cost us any money to move it anywhere. People are going to watch it regardless. Right. So I do think that it's a little bit of column A, wrestling isn't a sport, so we're not going to treat it as such. And a little bit of column B, AEW is doing, is knocking up against its ceiling. So we really don't have to do anything to it anyway to drive people to the service. Right. So, what they do going forward, time will tell. But I don't see Warner Brothers Discovery being eager to move AEW anywhere, especially after renegotiating the deal.
Correct.
Yeah. That's and the deal's still coming next year. I think their deal is up completely. Right. So they gotta there's wheels in motion here. Right quick before we go, let's quickly cover the big surprise return that happened last week because it got people talking. It was going to be one of our main topics tonight before all this drama happened. So we're quickly going to go around the table before we put a bow on this. The Rock crashed SmackDown last week. He talked on Pat McAfee's show about how him and Roman Reigns were locked in for last year at WrestleMania, and then somehow it didn't happen. So it begs the question that ruffled a lot of people's feathers. If The Rock is available, if the strike is still going on, if he works it into his schedule, come next year, WrestleMania, Philadelphia, should he jump the line and get Roman Reigns, regardless of whatever the hell else is going on, do Rock and Roman Reigns next year at WrestleMania, if it can happen next year in Philadelphia? Damian, you first.
Yes, it brings in money and eyes outside of the wrestling bubble. Duh, that's a no-brainer. You could do night 1, him and Roman, night 2, Cody and Roman. There you go. Have fun, guys. Like, that's simple.
I think it's a Saudi show. I think that's where you do it. Because you need that for the Saudi show, and WrestleMania is going to be WrestleMania. The build up is going to be the build up. But if they did it at WrestleMania, I don't think anybody would complain. But it needs to be the Kingdom.
All right, Jake says definitely do it. 2 James says an appearance minimum. I mean, clearly he's going to show up. He'll be involved in some way or another. My thinking is, if you can get The Rock and he wants to wrestle while he can still wrestle, you put The Rock in a damn match, whatever show he wants to be on, especially if you can get him against Roman Reigns, and especially if he's willing to do what I would think he'd be willing to do and put over his cousin, you do it. You don't miss that opportunity. Nope. And then Cody, after that, can get his shot. It can happen wherever.
The writer strike is going on. The actor strike is going on.
Yeah.
No, because once the strike is over, he's going to go back to work.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Batista, too, because people are talking about Batista also. So
the rumors we were hearing last night about, the writer's strike possibly wrapping up, it's like him and Cena both are around right now because they have the time on their hands. But the moment they get that text on their phone, back to work.
Yes. As soon as they go back to work, we're going to get another bad Mortal Kombat commercial and more.
I actually like the Mortal Kombat commercial. I thought it was cool.
He's got to put over his cousin. Come on, it's that darn simple.
Finish the story, Rob. Finish the story.
There you go. Finish the story. So, okay, we're all in agreement. You do the match. A lot of people are like, that wouldn't be fair to Cody. Cody can wait.
Cody don't care. He's fine. Cody be all right.
It's going to be fine, folks. It's going to be fine, folks. All right. Thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. This was a busy show, and I'm glad y'all were here for it. A crazy day in wrestling with just a lot going on. So I'm glad we were able to break it down and chop it all up here for you. Folks, every Thursday night, 8 p.m., your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast is live here on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all the streaming platforms. We're trying to get the video out there and have it. The next morning, Friday, it drops in podcast form on all your favorite podcast platforms. So if you want to listen to it as audio, you can listen to it as audio, or you can watch the video on YouTube. That stays up too. So live at 8 p.m., video lives on and the podcast lives on. Your Big Gold Belt Podcast is always here for you each and every week. In the meantime, of course, check out BigGoldBelt.com for wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And on all your social media platforms at Big Gold Belt, Twitter, Instagram, all those great things. I guess X I should be calling it. Eventually I'll get that down. But that's it, folks. We'll be back next week. Who knows what we'll be talking about, but thanks for being here. We had a lot of fun tonight, and we hope you did too. So until next time, we'll talk to you later.